Okay, let's talk 4JX1 injector wiring harnesses. This is the harness out of a 4JX1, comes from under the rocker cover. That connects to the wiring harness and goes directly to the computer, to the ECM, right? And those are the connectors that connect into the top of the fuel injectors, and that is for the all-rail pressure switch, okay? Now, you notice that there's a neoprene seal there on the connector. Now, this is from an engine that had done 245,000 kilometres. This wiring harness is 245,000 kilometres old in the engine. Now, normally what happens with plastics over time is they tend to harden, but you'll notice that this wiring harness is shielded by this plastic cover to prevent that. So you think, aha, but what about that bit there where it's not shielded? It would have gone hard. Look, pliable. It's not brittle. Now, conceivably, if you never replace this, after a long period of time, the plastic could get so brittle that any movement, it would crack the plastic insulation, and then you get a short, okay? Or possibly get a short. If it happened in two adjacent wires, for example. But look at it. It's pliable. Like, this has done nearly 250,000 kilometres, and it's like new, basically. I had to replace this because I was being ham-fisted when I took it out, and I broke off one of the connectors. One of them. Yeah, I broke one of the connectors off, and as a result, I had to go buy a new harness. Now, in my opinion, if they're pliable, then they'll seal. If you want to be really sure, when you put them back in again and you've cleaned everything, cleaned the oil out really thoroughly, and put some, get a spray pack of that electrical contact cleaner and spray it in both the halves of the connector, on the wiring harness and on the injector, then that should be seal enough, because those are still pliable and they'll still seal as good as a new one. Why wouldn't they? Okay. However, if you want to be really sure of a seal, then what a lot of mechanics do is they run a bit of silicon around there, engine silicon, silastic we call it here in Australia, that silicon gasket stuff, and when they push the connector in, you've got an even better seal. But that seems pretty anal to me. Personally, I think just clean it out. So I would do it this way. If you're doing in between maintenance on the vehicle, just clean the harness. But Land Rover replace these harnesses every 100,000 kilometres, and that's probably a good policy, because there's a plastic part inside a metal engine, so perhaps that's good policy. Now, what happens though when the oil leaks in? You're going to get an oil film between the two metal contactors, and it will create a resistance. So the injectors won't fire as well, you'd think, okay? But look at the size of the wires here. This is coming from a computer, which is a very low voltage device. They have to be, otherwise they fry themselves, they melt. But look at the size of the wires that are coming out of the engine computer, right? And you might notice that the engine computer in the engine bay is a big aluminium thing with heat fins on it, to dissipate heat. Where's all the heat coming from? It's not coming from the little microchip that runs the brain of the thing. It's coming from a big bank of power transistors that actually put the current through to fire the injectors. Now, what happens is the computer's brain tells these power, and if you don't know what a power transistor, think about the name, power transistor. It's exactly what the name implies. The computer tells the transistor to fire, and it's like a relay, if you know what that is. The power transistor then gets an awful lot of electricity and goes wham with a great big jump of electricity to make that big coil of wire, that big solenoid on top of the injector, fire at an incredibly fast rate, right? And with a lot of power, okay? So there's an awful lot of electrical force coming through, electromotive force, they call it, EMF, okay? So what if there is a bit of oil between the connectors? Well, obviously it can get through that resistance. Now, I would say that the engineers who designed this knew that there would inevitably be some oil getting in there, because cat diesel Land Rover TD5 engines, for example. Cummins have all got internal wire harnesses on some of their engines, and they've all got the same system, you know, and they all continue to fire. Now, have you ever heard of anybody replacing a wiring harness on a 4JX1 and then afterwards saying, "Wow, man, you should see how it goes now. It really goes like a rocket ship. That wiring harness, that old one, was really crap." No, you never hear that. They replace the wiring harness and you say, "How's it going?" They go, "Oh, yeah, it's going better now." Yeah. In other words, they can't notice the difference. But it's just good maintenance, I guess, you know. Conceivably, over time, this plastic could harden. There could be a breakdown. You know, it's a plastic part. Perhaps replace it to be on the safe side. Now, they're $140. Like I say, I replaced this one because I broke one of the clips on it, and I had to replace it anyway. But if you haven't got $140, if you're cash strapped or you just don't want to spend the money, then just clean the thing and put it back in again. That's my opinion. Now, as long as those seals are pliable, which they are, I mean, you feel them. They're like new. They're like new. You know, why spend money where you don't have to, you know? Okay, so that's injector wiring harnesses. Not a big deal. Okay, see ya.